Alright folks, and welcome back to the Dawn of World Sports. I am the Donfather, and I'm now going to be discussing a documentary I've just watched called Ice Guardians on Netflix. It's about the enforcers within the National Hockey League, or in the sport of hockey, ice hockey. And wow, what a documentary it was. Really informative. Obviously talking about players past and present who were enforcers, how it all came about, just the whole details about being an enforcer, being a fighter in hockey. Unbelievable. This documentary was made in 2016, so it's about 4 years old now, so I'm not too sure if there's been any rules changed in terms of the role of an enforcer. I know, like in most sports, they're trying to get rid of a lot of more dangerous sides to the sport in order to protect the players. But in some aspects, after watching the documentary, when you take into consideration what an enforcer does, it is of my opinion that the enforcer actually makes the game of hockey a lot more safer for the players with the finesse, the flair players, the players that ultimately create the moments in which you can remember in terms of winning games, hockey games, going out and scoring beautiful goals, beautiful bits of skill. They wouldn't be able to do that in a lot of cases if they never knew that they had somebody on their team that was willing to put their body on the line to protect them against dirty hits, slew footing, elbows, shoulders to the head. If a player's going to do that to someone, and they know they're going to be facing a 6'7" giant with the fucking rabies rage in his eyes, ready to kill them because they've just took out his best mate on the ice, then it might make them stop and think twice about hitting that said player. Anyway, I'll just run through some names of who the documentary featured, some legends of the game in terms of enforcers, fighters. We had Dave Schultz, who was, oh what a man, listening to him and his stories, the amount of fights he had in it, the injuries that these guys had as well was absolutely frightening. We'll go through the names. So it was Dave Schultz, Kelly Chazat. If I pronounce the names wrong, I'm sorry. Kelly Chase, Kevin Westgraf, Brett Hull, Rob Ray, Rick Tockett, Zenon Zenopka, I'm not too sure if I'm pronouncing them, Brett Gallant, Gino Odjick, Scott Parker, George Paris, Joe Kakor, Wendell Clark, Luke Gazich, Jeff Marek, Bobby Hull, and obviously there's Dave Semenko, Clark Gillis, and it talked about 3 other ones who died in the same year, very close together. I've actually covered 2 of them, one of them being Derek Bugart at the top. He was my most recent one, and Rick Rippon, he passed away as well in the same year. 2 phenomenal fighters that I've covered, incredible, really enjoyed those videos. And the third guy that died that same year in a short space of time was Wade Bellac. They do mention other ones, but they weren't actually in the documentary as well. I've just put them over here. Probably being the most prestigious name in the enforcer world. A lot of people would regard this guy as the greatest, and when you're hearing enforcers, a lot of them almost unanimously saying this guy was the greatest, and their role. Bob Probert, of some of the stuff I've seen of him, what an animal of a man. But obviously, what a huge amount of respect that I have for the guy and for the people who are willing to do this stuff. Ty Domi is somebody that I'm going to be covering very shortly, and McSorley. So many big names, past and present, more so past now, given the nature of the way the sport's going. That were just absolute legends. I mean, they entertained the crowd, but ultimately they were doing a job to protect their best players. Looking back at what the documentary said about the likes of Wayne Gretzky, who without any shadow of a doubt is the greatest player the game of hockey's ever seen, he genuinely believed that he wouldn't have been the player he was. Yes, he would have been a phenomenal player, but he wouldn't have been the player he was if he never had these guys to have his back. I mean, there's players on the ice that are going out there to leave an elbow on you, to drive you with the shoulder, to hit you dirty, to slow foot you, to do all these things, potentially really injuring the best players. But he genuinely believed that he was able to go and do his job better because he had 3 guys that had his back near enough at all times. And at one point when he was moving to Los Angeles, he actually took them with him. One of them with him, sorry, because he said, I'm not going without him. I can't play my best hockey without psychologically knowing he's there to have my back and protect me if somebody's going to try and hurt me. Just want to put in a few little points about these guys. I mean, these guys are loyal. More loyal than any other person to the team. They're loyal. They are willing to put a selfless commitment, really, isn't it? They're putting their bodies on the line to protect others from being injured. They're almost paying the ultimate sacrifice, really. They're getting penalised. They're probably getting all the sorts of things like fines, missing games, whatever, for certain things they might do. But ultimately, they're doing it, they're sacrificing themselves physically and maybe even mentally at times, given the emotional strain it must be on them from the fear in the gut, knowing that like tonight they're going into a fight, bare knuckle fight against another warrior, if you like, possibly. So you're going to have nerves, that emotional, being injured, physically injured, and still having that sort of mental drive to be able to fire yourself up for a fight possibly the next night, which is incredible to believe. Some fighters actually having about 50 fights in a season, which is mental to say the least, given the nature of some of the injuries that they're receiving. But the ultimate team players, that's what they are. As I said, they're putting their bodies on the line, and the sheer loyalty that they show to their teammates is incredible, more so than any other player on the ice. They have a code of conduct. They're probably in some ways the most respectful people on the ice, because what you see is what you get. A spade's a spade. You know he's going out there to do that one job to the best of his ability. He's not going to give you any cheek, any back lip to the refs. They know what they're dealing with, and they've actually said in this video that they actually prefer dealing with the enforcers, talking to the enforcers after incidents had happened, than an ordinary hockey player, a normal hockey player that's going about and do. They got more back chat, more lip, more stick. But these guys have a warrior-like code of conduct that is sort of an unwritten rule, is an etiquette that they have for each other, knowing, yes, I'm coming up against him. So there's like in boxing, like in mixed martial arts, there's a very real respect that they have for each other, because ultimately they're both doing the same job. And as it was quoted, to the fans, they're heroes and villains, but they're near enough exactly the same, but in a different jersey. So you might hate that guy because he plays for Edmonton if you're an Oilers fan. Or sorry, if you're a Flames fan, you hate the Oilers one, and vice versa, for example. But ultimately, if you had that player on your team and they had your player on their team, you would still love your man and hate their man. So it's very much hero and villain, but at the same time, you've got to respect the fact they're near enough the same people with the same great warrior-like code of conduct that they abide by, and the etiquette they have and the respect they have for each other was quite impressive actually. There's no real malice in much of the stuff they do. Yes, on the ice at the time, of course, the violence involved, but after it's all done, it's done. Do you know what I mean? There's no grudges held. It's part of their job, it's part of the game, it's part of the protection of their own players, a lot of this. Which brings me to another situation where we're talking, when in the documentary, when they're talking about in the leagues which actually have no fighting, no enforcers in Europe, not the UK league, because like the NHL or North American leagues where fighting's allowed, the UK is the same. The players that have went from Canada, America over to the likes of Sweden or other countries in Europe where there's no fighting, they actually believed that it was less safe for their their players with more finesse, their flair players, their magical players if you like, and they were getting bigger injuries because actually having an enforcer on the bench, it actually psychologically makes other players who are more likely to shoulder you or elbow you in the jaw think twice, because they might have a guy 6'7" coming off the bench ready to knock 7 colours of shite out of them if they hit the best player. Whereas in Europe, there isn't that same fear, if you like. So it's giving people a free rein to just go out and hammer the best players and hurt them. So certainly, in my opinion, it's a huge positive to know that if somebody's doing something dirty, you're bringing a McGrattan, a Solanko, a Schultz off the bench to even up the score. These sorts of guys, 100%. But as I think one of the doctors had said, this is tribalism, but they put their heart and the soul and the breath of us into it all. They put everything into it. They characterised it as well, and I can't just remember exactly the way it characterised. No matter what industry you work in, whether it's in an office or it's in hockey or if it's in the military or whatever it is, they've done scientific studies that says you can always break it down into 4 groups of what you're going to get in a group. You'll always get a leader, a kind of enforcer, a joker, and I think there was another one as well, but I just can't remember the title they gave it. And no matter what you do, even when you've got groups of leaders and you put them all together, they eventually work themselves out, maybe not conscious of it, but into these same categories. And that's it, like, that's just it. So in every team, you're going to have people who want to fight for the team, physically put their bodies on the line. Warriors, if you like, it's just in you. And they also said these types of people are more likely to do the high risk jobs, like going to the fire service, the police, the military, and also going to these sorts of contact sports. Interesting fact in this documentary as well was the concussion rate. Obviously the media, I believe, no matter what country you're in, the media can feed the good, but ultimately also feed the bad. They have been obviously on a driven agenda against the enforcer type players, how dangerous they are, how bad it is. It's very, very violent. We shouldn't be advertising this, we shouldn't be putting this on our TVs. It's not the right message to send out. However, when you look into the medical studies that they've had, like professionals have put into this, and I'm not saying it would have been over 1 year, this would be many, many years of injuries, whether it's concussions or neck injuries or whatever it is, the majority of them come through big hits with an elbow or a shoulder. 5% of concussions actually happen from fights on the ice, from enforcers. 95% come from hits, which actually was quite an interesting fact. Basically, the way I had took this was they changed the padding to protect the body. They put bigger shoulder pads, pads in the elbows, across the body, which actually encourages a player to fly faster on the ice and literally wipe out an opposing player. As fantastic as that might be to see in a highlight reel on YouTube, it's actually far more dangerous for your best players, your Crosbys, the likes of Connor McDavid. These players aren't getting the same protection, because what you have is a padded up nutcase ready to fucking run out full pelt at them and wipe them off the face of the fucking planet. And know that there's enforcers are bound by rules, things that they can and cannot do. If somebody hits your best player so dirty and you hit them first, then also you get an instigator penalty, you get the fight penalty, you get all these other penalties, which leads to a 7-minute power play for the other team, which actually gives them the chance of winning the game. So it's really, really lopsided the way NHL has handled the rules. They should look into the medical studies of the injuries, concussions, what are putting people out for the long term, possibly giving them less quality of life later on in life due to the neck and head injuries, etc. But most of these are done through the hits. And what you've done by putting bigger pads on the shoulder and the bodies and around the elbows is encourage people to hit harder with no real repercussions of doing so. So to conclude, what I think about the role of the enforcer and fighting within the sport, it should stay. And not only should it stay, I believe the protection that players have on their bodies for running at each other. The game is faster, it is quicker, it's fantastic on the eye. However, the injuries that people are receiving from some of these hits, from some scumbags on the ice who are only out there to hurt and injure an opponent, rather than have the balls to stand up toe to toe with them and fight a 6'7" monster enforcer. The padding should be changed. Interesting fact was, for the old school enforcer says, you wouldn't have run people like that back in the day because you would have hurt yourself. You'd have hurt yourself. So the padding's actually encouraging people to run their opponent and ultimately give them concussions and have them injured for a very long time if the concussions build up on the sidelines. So actually what you're doing is you're taking your best players out of the sport for a longer period of time, because things like padding being improved, helping the person hitting rather than the person receiving the hit, the rule changing on enforcers not allowing them to even up the score and get that person back is a catastrophic fail by the Hockey League. Without a doubt, enforcers need to be encouraged. Fights need to happen. You need to know that if you're going to do something that could possibly lead to a concussion, like running an elbow into somebody when they're not expecting it, filthy play like that there, you need to know that if you're going to do that, you are going to get the fuck kicked out of you, and rightly so, because if you're not ballsy enough to stand toe to toe and fight the opponent that you're trying to wipe out of it, then there's no place in hockey for you, not for the enforcer, for you, because you're a coward. And this is a fucking man's sport, a physical sport. We love to watch. People love the passion that comes from the stands. You're representing your town, your city, that badge on the breast that means everything to you. But you don't want a player that's making your badge, your town, look weak and cheap by having a cowardly hit on a Crosby, on a McDavid, on these modern day players that are absolute pleasure to watch. That's why you need a Schultz, a Semenko, a McSorley, bashing people and smashing their face in when they quite rightly see something that was catastrophically, categorically wrong. Anyway, fantastic documentary. Really enjoyed it. It just made me love the enforcer even more. Actually, and when you listen to them, they're quite wise, believe it or not. As I said, the code of conduct that they have, I could actually listen to them more than a little scumbag coming up and doing something. I actually did cover one of these sorts of players, just can't remember the name of him off the top of my head, but he would be doing dirty stuff like slew footing. And how can you have respect for it, really? The more I learn about the sport, it's not skill, it's not brave, it's weak, it's pathetic, and it's cowardly. And give me a Probert every single day of the week in the Hockey League before the likes of that there, because what they're doing is entertaining the fans but also defending their team, putting their bodies on the line, selfless commitment, loyalty, incredible. Anyway, brilliant stuff, folks. Ice Guardians is a must watch. Well done for making that documentary, and the extra people like the doctors and psychologists and all these people who have obviously done years of studies on this sport, really added to the documentary as well. Brilliant stuff. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, folks, and put the notifications bell on as well so you don't miss any of our uploads. And check out our social media platforms in the description section below. That would be fantastic. Also, we have a Patreon account. If you want to become a patron, that would be brilliant also. I would really appreciate it. Thanks very much, everyone. I am the Donfather. That was my take on Ice Guardians, but ultimately the Enforcers. Enforcers are magic. I absolutely love them. And brilliant show. See you all soon. Goodbye.